Hey there, everyone. Thanks for joining me again today for a balanced weather video briefing. I'm gonna get right into it here by sharing my screen and taking a look at what's going on around the country today. And similar to yesterday, we actually have a bit of a quieter um, day weather-wise as far as thunderstorms go across much of the country. Still have some scattered storms across the southeast, some lingering rain up in New England, um, with some developing stronger to severe storms developing out here. There's some stronger storms in Wyoming, where we can see some special weather statements in effect, and starting to see some stronger storms developing back here over the Nebraska Panhandle. And this red outline here is where the Storm Prediction Center has a mesoscale discussion out for the likelihood that they're going to be issuing a watch. And if we take a look at the outlooks for today, starting with the SPC outlook, we can see there's a slight risk up in this area where I was just looking at the mesoscale discussion. And if we look at the different probabilities here, we can see the tornado risk is fairly low, but not zero. So there is some risk of tornadoes here across northern South Dakota into parts of Minnesota. But the bigger threat is wind and hail. We can see here 15% risk of wind with conditional group 1, which indicates potential for some significant wind greater than 75 miles an hour. And the hail is a little more focused back here in western South Dakota, but again, SIG 1 for possible 2-inch or greater hail. We look at the excessive rainfall outlook, where the flash flooding risk exists today. You can see the primary risk here is in the upper Midwest, and it's actually a little further east from the severe weather risk. The thinking being that as storms develop into more organized clusters, we could have some increased training here as we go through central Minnesota into parts of northwest Wisconsin, and still some lingering risk here in the mid-Atlantic, back into parts of the Arklatex, marginal to slight risk. The thunderstorm activity in here is a lot less organized, but particularly along some of these areas here in the Arklatex, and then in the Tennessee Valley, Ohio Valley, there's been quite a bit of rainfall over the last 7 to 10 days. So any heavy rain could cause some localized flash flooding and convection. The thunderstorm activity will be a bit more organized here across the mid-Atlantic. And there are some flash flood watches in effect for this region here through tonight. So the other outlooks I want to look at here are the fire weather outlook. We don't have any critical areas, but there are these elevated areas for gusty winds and relatively low relative humidity across parts of the western United States. And there are some red flag warnings in effect. If we go to the active weather alerts, we can see some red flag warnings here across parts of the Intermountain West, extreme heat watches and warnings down here in the Southwest with the building heat in that part of the country. See the flash flood watches here in the mid-Atlantic, also up here with that risk in the northern plains and upper Midwest. And we also have some heat advisories here for parts of the Southeast. So we're going to take a look at the longer range here in a minute. Before we jump into that, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in Europe, because they are once again dealing with extreme heat. And once again, it's particularly centered in France. We look at, these are high temperatures for today, and you can see widespread hundreds across much of France. Northeast is a little cooler, but most of the interior part of France saw high temperatures near or above 100 again today. Also, numerous hundreds back here in Spain. The extreme, the climatologist that does the extreme temperatures account on Blue Sky noted that at least one observation site in Portugal or Spain has reported at least 44 degrees Celsius so far each day this year, or excuse me, this month, which is in excess of 110. And numerous records are being broken through this region again, currently, even up into southern parts of the UK, not as hot as what we saw in the extreme heat wave about 10 days ago, but still you can see a lot of upper 80s and lower 90s here across southeast England, including in the London metro area. So looking at how things are going to evolve here in Europe for the next several days, you can see here, this is the 500 millibar pattern, and we've got this anomalously strong area of upper level high pressure across Western Europe. Again, it's extending north from this intense high pressure center over along the northwest coast of Africa. And as we go through time, a couple of upper level low pressure centers are going to try to work toward the Iberian Peninsula. And we have this very, what meteorologists call blocky pattern, where you see that we got this upper low here, we've got an upper low over Eastern Europe, but in between from France through Scandinavia and the UK, we have these anomalously high heights, high pressure aloft, and this is for late Thursday night U.S. time, and that area of high pressure really becomes entrenched across these regions through the weekend and into the first part of next week. So while Portugal and maybe into Western Spain will get a reprieve from the heat, and in fact, Portugal's already starting to see a bit of a reprieve. Areas farther to the east, France, into the UK, and parts of Scandinavia are going to be pretty locked in to significantly above normal, and in some cases, some record temperatures. And we can see this in the 850 millibar, looking at about 5,000 feet. That gives us kind of a constant level to look at the low level temperatures. You can see this is for tomorrow late in the day, and you can see the area of highest anomalies here over Ireland down into the western part of France. And as we go through time, we're now at late in the day Thursday European time, and still that same area pretty locked in. And in fact, as we go into Friday, the anomalies increase here again over France, and we basically have these anomalously warm temperatures really locked in here to France and adjoining areas. This is now late in the day on Sunday. So it looks like a particularly hot period again for this region, again with France kind of being the central ground zero for all of this heat. Coming back stateside, here in the U.S., I pointed out the heat warnings being issued in the Southwest, and we have this area of upper level high pressure building here through Southern California into the Southwest. And that system pretty much remains anchored in that general area into Friday. We're now looking at Friday morning, but we start to see an upper level low pressure center dropping along the Pacific Northwest coast. And that results in this area of high pressure really building across the Four Corners region and extending well up into central Canada. This is Saturday midday. And as we go into the end of the weekend, this is a huge area of upper level high pressure with a 6,000 meter center here over Western North Dakota. This is the European model we're looking at, same as what we were looking at over Europe. And for those of you that have been following along with me for a while, I've mentioned many times that a 6,000 meter high pressure center at 500 millibars is a sign of a really strong anomalous high pressure dome at that level. And amazingly, as we go into the early part of next week, that it just gets more intense. This is, I have to say, this is one of the larger contours of 600 decameter heights I think I've seen in a while. And so what that really means in this, at least in the model world, persists through at least the middle part of next week. It starts to weaken a little bit, but still we're talking, nearly 600 decameters here across much of the central part of the country. And what that tells us is it's going to get hot again through that part of the country. And if we look at the 850 millibar temperature anomalies by Sunday, a really big area of extremely above normal temperatures here from Montana into south central Canada. And by the time we get into Monday, just really extreme warmth here into Manitoba, extending down into the Dakotas and upper Midwest. Interestingly, below this high pressure area, we're going to see some easterly disturbances moving east to west below the high pressure area that are probably going to trigger some thunderstorms and also enable things to be a little bit cooler for a while. But for the upper Midwest and eventually into the Great Lakes and parts of the Ohio Valley by later next week, it looks like the heat will be continuing to build. Another area that looks like it's going to be locked into heat for much of this period while we have this big heat dome is going to be the Intermountain West, places like Salt Lake City, Boise, Wyoming, eventually the Southwest, as I was mentioning, with those east to west moving areas of low pressure aloft. We should start to see monsoonal moisture increase underneath the high pressure area, and that ought to bring some thunderstorm activity and eventually some less hot conditions to the Southwest by later next week. So the bottom line is looking at another really major heat dome building across the country, but this time more focused from the Intermountain West up into the upper Midwest and eventually the Great Lakes and parts of the Midwest. So the last thing I want to talk about here is Super Typhoon Bobby. It is still a Category 4 typhoon. It has weakened a bit, but it's as I talked about yesterday, it's expected to maintain at least the equivalent of major hurricane intensity for the next few days, the next several days, as it moves off toward the west-northwest and eventually northwest. The main reason I wanted to show this is, number one, obviously, because it is a potential threat to land eventually, and then number two, because we have another one of these interesting situations where we have a bit of a discrepancy between what the AI models are showing and what the physics-based models are showing. This is the AI-based European forecast track, and you can see it it has a really strong clustering here for the eye of the storm to pass just north of Taiwan and eventually into parts of eastern mainland China. And if we look at the Google DeepMind, it has a very similar idea. You can see here initially we have 130 knots, and it maintains, we're looking at different models here, but even the ensemble mean here as we go out, let me see if I can get back on the ensemble mean here. It's still 104 knots here 2 days from now. So it's forecast to remain a significant system as it moves toward the northwest. But like I was saying, the AI models tend to take it north of Taiwan and into eastern China, whereas the physics-based models, like the physics-based European ensemble, are farther south and actually track, an intense, potentially Category 3, 4 typhoon across northern Taiwan, and then eventually a weaker system into eastern China. So we've seen this quite a bit in the last couple of years. And one thing that is interesting is that the AI models have not been quite as good in the Western Pacific as they have been in the Atlantic. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out and whether the physics-based models with a bit more southerly track will pan out over the AI models with the track a bit further to the north. So I think that's about all I have for today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I will be probably getting out a quick post later tonight or maybe in the morning tomorrow. I'm going to be traveling tomorrow, but I'll get out something just to at least get a quick update out. And again, thank you all for your support of Balanced Weather and for tuning in for this weather briefing, and we will talk to everybody soon.